we've created government action, driven up the price of goods and services and healthcare. We've got government action driving up the price of energy on a regular basis. My friend from Maryland talked about climate change. Well, this is actually part of the problem. We act like we've got like a magic energy tree, right? Oh, we'll just go plug in our hybrids all over America, but where's the energy come from? It comes from somewhere. Maybe we should review the 40-odd plus emergencies we're still operating under that date back to the 1970s. Maybe all 435 members of Congress should care about Article 1 authority relative to Article 2 authority. Maybe we should actually do something about it. Maybe we should try to make them respond to us. So if we think policy making by executive order is a good thing down here in Article 2 land, I'm just going to disagree with that. I don't think we should allow the president to just unilaterally do stuff and we don't look at it and go, hey, what are you doing? Because, it's actually our job. And so for me, this is just another tool. I'm not a big fan of reports, right? But to get to the truth of trying to understand from the bureaucrats down the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue and scattered all over creation, okay, if there's an executive order, how much is that going to cost? What's that going to do from an inflationary standpoint? That is why I offered amendments not to exempt certain things. I don't like our defense hawks on either side of the aisle to go around saying, oh, but national security. Really? Right? There's no inflationary impact to what we're going to do for spending on national security, as if that should be exempted. Of course it shouldn't be exempted. We should make rational decisions about every dollar we spend. We should actually debate guns and butter. Heaven forbid we have a debate about guns and butter in this town and have, Econ 101 returned to the halls of Congress. But I am, what's that? I'm for guns. You are for guns. That's true. We do know that. The couple, interesting data points. We're talking about, inflation, and I would just ask my friend from Kentucky, Mr. Comer, if he is familiar that national health expenditures in this country went from about $3 trillion in 2010 to $4.3 trillion currently. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Does it sound about right that meanwhile? United Health grew about 172%, Cigna 653%, CVS Health 181% over the decade from 2010 to 2020, and I could go down the list of massive expansion of private healthcare entities. The gentleman I think is probably familiar because Humana I think has a footprint in Kentucky, that Humana stopped servicing private insurance last week, announced that they were going to stop servicing employer-provided health insurance last week. Why? Because they're going to move their business entirely to government-sponsored health insurance. That's what's going on. You want to know what's driving inflation beyond simply the $5 trillion that was printed? Let's go back to some of the policy choices by this body to massively expand the government's role in a corporate crony state, to expand the government role in healthcare, driving up the price of healthcare in the name of coverage. Which, by the way, still praying for my friend from Maryland. My cancer, when I went to MD Anderson, and I had insurance then that I was allowed to go to MD Anderson in 2011, under the Obamacare plan that I would get as a member of Congress, because despite the fact everybody says we're on some sort of, gold-plated plans exempt from, what the American people have, we're on an Obamacare plan. I couldn't get on MD Anderson. That's how great our coverage is. But you know what? I might be able to do something about that as a member of Congress. Really rich people certainly can do something about it. But the average person shoved into an Obamacare plan is screwed, unable to go to MD Anderson for the most part. So look, what I'm saying is we've created government action, driven up the price of goods and services and healthcare. We've got government action driving up the price of energy on a regular basis. My friend from Maryland talked about climate change. Well, this is actually part of the problem. We act like we've got like a magic energy tree, right? Oh, we'll just go plug in our hybrids all over America, but where's the energy come from? It comes from somewhere. And so we go around saying, oh, let's pat ourselves on the back because we're constraining the ability of us to produce actual energy in the form of nuclear, gas, clean-burning American gas, coal even. While China has 1,100 coal-fired plants, we have about 250. They're building one a week. We're building none. We pat ourselves on the back that we're doing something for CO2 production. Meanwhile, China and India are just blowing the lid off the top. And so we're sitting around going, oh, look at us. Look how great we are making electricity prices higher, making grids more unreliable, and people wonder why there's inflation. Of course there's inflation when you're constraining the ability of the market to go produce energy. Yeah, no, it's totally true. And the fact is, I'd yield to the gentleman.
Wait, gentlemen,
Yeah.
the sidebar here was that I understand the policy disagreements about
Right.
the various federal laws that we enacted over the last year. I guess what I'm trying to get at is the press release from Ms. Stefanik, the committee sheet from the rules staff here, the only executive order that is referenced is Keystone Pipeline. And of course, the majority is welcome to put a bill on the floor with respect to that particular issue. Is there another executive order in mind that you all are, that you claim had an inflationary impact, and so this bill is targeting? Because I guess I haven't.
And I'll take
yeah,
the climax.
of course.
There are all sorts of, and look, I'll tell you what. I'll go
you name
research.
one?
First of all, I'll research and come up with a list for you because I guarantee you there's a list. But let me tell you some examples.
Well, I mean,
But let me see examples.
that's what we're debating.
No, I'll tell you right now some examples.
Maybe Mr.
right?
Comer has one.
So we have the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline. We have the efforts by the executive branch in terms of the moratorium on federal oil and gas leases and pause on leasing in ANWR, the overturn of the Trump executive action related to WOTUS and NEPA, the rejoin the disastrous Paris Climate Agreement, executive orders that directed the EPA, SEC, Interior, Energy to engage in rulemakings that restrict growth and drive up inflation. There's all sorts of ESG orders in the middle of the Labor Department. And those ESG orders are driving, through ERISA plans, are driving the crap up in the price of goods and services because they're more expensive. And those fees, by the way, are more expensive. What's that?
Clarifying, those are rules. I think we're taking up a bill in a moment regarding the rules that were promulgated by DOL. I don't think that would apply to this
My point is
bill.
that these actions, these rules, these executive orders by the executive branch ought to be looked at in full. And tell you what, if we want to offer an amendment that expands the zone to more administrative and executive action, I'm happy to do it. Right? I want to know the damage being done by an executive branch that we're not overseeing. And so, look, if we want to expand that to understand the inflationary impact, I'd be happy to do that.
The gentleman,
make it bigger.
Yeah, I mean, just on that point, I mean, this is part of what I'm driving at is intellectually, I understand the argument you might make about an agency that promulgates a rule, and of course, there are requirements within rulemaking for cost analysis and so forth. But that's the point that I'm making, is that's very divorced from the executive orders that are being issued by the president. It doesn't seem like beyond again, I understand your objection with respect to Keystone Pipeline. Sure. Beyond that, I'm not hearing much in terms of executive orders being offered by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that would be subject to this bill in terms of an inflationary impact. But again, won't belabor the point.
Well, my colleague here has a list and be happy to go through them. There are an enormous number of actions by the executive branch on a regular basis. There are executive orders that have inflationary impacts. That is, I think, on both sides of the aisle. And look, and by the way, I have zero partisan, decision making here from my end here in terms of believing that it should apply to one versus another. Again, that's why it's a little out of sync with this. But the Article 1 Act directed to President Trump to limit those executive orders was on that basis, very specifically to do that. And in this case, we're simply just saying we'd like to know the inflationary impact.